Okay, here we go. Report podcast. This is episode 46. Preseason. Can you believe it, man? As quick as it got here, it's about gone. The Jaguars playing South Florida against the Miami Dolphins this week. Game one was a disappointment. You never like to lose a game, but keep in mind the Jags went 3-0 in the preseason last year and 4-13 in the regular season. So, as we welcome you to the Teal Shirt Report podcast, we got to talk about the preseason game. Steelers beat the Jaguars in the only home preseason game. Steelers 31, Jaguars 25. That game, can you believe it's been well over 2 weeks ago? Last week, the Jaguars looked like they had a win, and the Saints backups came back to beat the Jaguars backups. But the game ended up tied 17-17. Errant pass late in the game by a backup quarterback took the Jags out of a field goal situation where they could have actually won the game. In New Orleans, Trevor played well, 8 out of 10, touchdown pass to Parker Washington. Looks like the Jaguars have found a pretty good running back in Brashul Tootin, officially the third round back. There's a fourth round back, too. Does he end up on the practice squad? He was a late round draft pick, but the Jags seem to be really high and happy on both running backs they drafted. So it looks like there's 4 running backs on the active roster, probably 3. Does the fourth guy go to the practice squad? Well, we'll see. Get some comments about that. Final preseason game will be against the Miami Dolphins in South Florida. Doesn't mean much. It'll be backups. And I'm going to tell you, I have to be honest, the preseason games, to me, they look like they get worse and worse. I saw the Chicago Bears. A good friend of mine that's a Bears fan said they blew out the Buffalo Bills. Preseason doesn't mean a whole lot. It was a shutout, like 30-something to nothing, I think. Was it 34-0? I can't remember the exact score, but the Bears scored like 30 points or more. The Bills got nothing. But it was preseason. Regular season wins and losses is what it's all about. Again, the Jaguars preseason is winding down. One more game, as we mentioned, in Miami and South Florida on the road. Then it starts for real. The first regular season game will be against the Carolina Panthers. That's apropos. The Panthers and Jaguars came into the league exactly at the same time and started playing their first regular season way back in 1995. So I think it's a cool matchup from that perspective because, man, the Jaguars have been around 30 years or more now, right? And the Panthers too, and they'll play in the first regular season game. It's all about regular season. The Jaguars made a trade recently that, I like to trade. A lot of people are starting to like the guy the Jaguars picked up because typically they got a defensive tackle, and it was, this was not a bad deal because it was kind of like, I'm trying to find the info on the trade now. Luke Fortner was traded, and, I think it was an interesting trade from the standpoint of a numbers game. I think I said the word glut the other day, and I didn't mean that in a bad way. It just kind of seemed like, in my opinion and in my mind, it just seems like the Jaguars have a lot of offensive linemen, but not really a lot of very good ones. Anton Harrison has a chance to be very good at right tackle if he can stay healthy. Left tackle Walker Little still under the microscope. It seems like the Jaguars coaches, they're still reshuffling the offensive line. Who plays this week? Would a guy like, and he was a third-round pick, does Wyatt Milam play in the final preseason game? I think he might for a while. But it's mainly going to be free agents, undrafted free agents, I should say, bubble guys on the bubble, late round picks. I love the Jags defensive backs. I think the Jags were short, maybe one defensive tackle at least. And they went out and they made the trade. The Jacksonville Jaguars have traded center Luke Fortner. They already got a guy in Hainsey they like to be the starter. I think the jury is still out on Hainsey because he was, what was he? He was a backup center in Tampa Bay last year, but he started the year before. What happened from one year to the next? Apparently, Liam Cohen, the former offensive coordinator with the Buccaneers, likes Hainsey a lot, enough to have, without a doubt, he was essential in the GM bringing him over to Jacksonville in free agency. And Hainsey, who should start at center. It looks like McCary, the free agent from Baltimore, probably is going to be your right guard. And I don't want to go over the entire offensive line, but the Jags are shuffling it. They're trying to find the right combination. The Jacksonville Jaguars have traded center Luke Fortner to the New Orleans Saints in exchange for defensive tackle Kalen Saunders. This is a big guy. I saw him in the film. He's only been with the Jaguars since, the trade happened right after the Saints and Jaguars preseason game and preseason game number 2. So he's been a Jaguars. You probably don't count Sunday because the game was played on Sunday. But he's been a Jaguars player since this past Monday. So he's been a Jaguar. He's been a Jaguar for like 3 or 4 days. The Jacksonville Jaguars have traded center Luke Fortner to the New Orleans Saints in exchange for defensive tackle Kalen Saunders, as the Jaguars are addressing their roster needs. Let's see the trade details. Players involved. The Jaguars sent Luke Fortner, a center, drafted in the 3rd round of the 2022 NFL draft to the Saints. And at the time, I liked Fortner. I wish we had drafted an offensive lineman, with a 1st or 2nd round pick. But Fortner came, and I think he was somewhat of a disappointment. And there was some people, including John Gaylor, that said, man, there's a chance he might not make the team this year. Maybe a change of scenery will do him good in New Orleans. I don't know. The Jaguars get Kalen Saunders, a defensive tackle who has experience in the league and previously played for the Kansas City Chiefs before joining the New Orleans Saints. This is a guy, he's a big guy. Looks like he's kind of built low to the ground, but he's very big. Seems like he moves well for, a big defensive tackle. So the Jags get Saints defensive tackle Kalen Saunders, and the Jaguars ship apparently backup center Luke Fortner to the New Orleans Saints. And I know that John Gaylor told me, he said, well, he was thinking Fortner might not make the team. He was definitely going to be a backup. Maybe a change of scenery will do him well in New Orleans. Maybe New Orleans really needs a center. I don't know how badly they need a center. It's fresh scenery for both players when you trade them. I mean, to me, it looks like a trade of need. The Jags needed a little bit more help on the defensive line. The Jags also were trying to clear out some, I call it glut, a little bit too many offensive, maybe one too many offensive players. Maybe they've still got more than they need or should have, and that'll all be decided when they release players, cut players, release players, what have you, I believe on the last day of this month in August. So in a sense, you picked up another defensive tackle. Now I want to go into, I almost forgot to go into this direction, but the other defensive tackle that Gaylor was talking about, is what's the guy's name? Devon, and he's a good player, Devon Hamilton. And Gaylor asked me, he said, does this mean the end of Devon Hamilton in Jacksonville? I don't know. He had signed a second contract. He's a defensive tackle. He's been lauded where there's been times where people said, man, he may become one of the best defensive tackles / nose guards, because basically he's a nose guard defensive tackle out of Ohio State. The Jags drafted him. He had been at Ohio State, I think. He did, his situation was he was a 5-year guy at Ohio State, I believe. Devon Hamilton, let's take a look. His 8 tackles were the most by a Jaguars defensive lineman in a single game since defensive end Josh Hines-Allen had 10 on September the 10th of 2023. This is just a stat where he did get 8 tackles in a game. Jaguars trade Luke Fortner, pick up Saunders. And, as far as Devon Hamilton goes, let me see here. I told Gaylor, I said, man, I think it's great. I think we should try to keep both of them. We need more defensive tackles, and this way you don't have to pull a guy, even though I thought it might be a good idea. Devon Hamilton's been in the league for 6 years. Wears number 52, about 6'4", 335 pounds. You kind of like to pick up both guys, but it's a numbers game. He's had some good games in the league. I'm looking at a 5-tackle game that he had. We just read you about an 8-tackle game. He's had injuries. In 2022, he played in 17 games, started 14 games. He was durable in 2024. It looks like, 17 games, 14 game starts. In 2023, injury issues, played in 8 games, 2 games started. So Devon Hamilton is a guy that, let's see, Devon Hamilton. He's been around. These guys, man, time flies, and he's been around for a while. He's an NFL veteran now, Devon Hamilton. Now you add Saunders. Devon Hamilton was born February the 1st of 1997 and is an American professional football defensive tackle for the Jacksonville Jaguars of the National Football League. I believe he also leans toward being a nose guard if the defense plays a nose guard. Cut down day will be interesting because of Devon Hamilton and now Saunders. Do you keep both those guys? I would love to see him keep both of them. See them both play well. And then if that happens, you've got Eric Armstead, who's really wants to play more inside. And when you say inside, is that defensive tackle or is that more of a big end? And where do you play 44? Trayvon Walker. Is this the year he finally comes of age? We know he's had 10 sacks in 2023 and 10.5 sacks in 2024. But what games did he get these sacks in? They seem to come in bunches. Sometimes these sacks will come in situations where, oh, man, I fell into that guy. Where it's a game where you get 2 or 3 sacks. In my mind, I think it's great that Trayvon Walker, depending on how the defensive coordinator Anthony Campanelli will use Trayvon Walker. Is he a big end? Do they push him inside some? Do they try to play him at a big outside linebacker? What is his position? Where will he play? Give me your comments about Trayvon Walker. Can the defense be better than we think it can? Will Saunders help? How much will Saunders play? And then you've got a guy named DeJuan Smoot, who I think in the preseason's got a sack and a half already. And I like the guy. And he's been with the Jaguars most of his career. He played 1 year in Buffalo last year. But he's a player that has signed he was drafted by the Jaguars in the 3rd round, way back when Tom Coughlin was the executive vice president for the Jaguars. He was drafted several years ago. The Jags have signed him, I know, to, the rookie deal, and then they signed him to a couple of other contracts after that. And then he went with Buffalo for 1 year. Now he's back with the Jaguars. So when I add it up, I think since his rookie time in Jacksonville, he signed as many as 3 contracts with the Jaguars, played a year with Buffalo. And now even the new GM, James Gladstone, liked him enough to bring him back to Jacksonville. But however, the 53 stares us all in the face on, I believe, close to the last day of August. What will happen with the 53? Oh, this is the question I wanted to ponder for John Gaylor and even our executive producer, JC. How many players are allowed to be on the practice squad? The numbers seem to change. The money goes up on what players make. If they're on the practice squad all year, they make a good amount of money, especially if they stay on the practice squad all year and they're still available, to the team. And then there's other situations where other teams can actually poach players from your practice squad. I don't know all the ramifications. I probably should. How many, that would be my question. Does anybody out there know? And I can look it up. How many players end up on the practice squad? By the way, we're brought to you by Saucer Realty and Capital for your real estate needs. Let me just look it up now. How many players? I'll pose the question. How many players are allowed on an NFL practice squad? We'll just try to type in everybody types in everything to get their answers. How many players are allowed on an NFL practice squad? Better put the year too, because the numbers have changed as far as the practice squad goes. Okay, the latest I've got 16 players. I think at one time it was 10. I started thinking maybe it was 20 now, but it's 16 players. In 2025, NFL teams are allowed to carry up to 16 players on their practice squad. This practice squad includes at least 10 rookies or players in their second year, and there is a special spot where you can put an international player on the practice squad too. So the number apparently is 16 now. 16. And is that correct? I believe I got the correct information on that. Brought to you by Saucer Realty and Capital for your real estate needs in North Florida. Whether it's home, residential, business, or commercial real estate, Saucer Realty and Capital. My good friend Larry Saucer, he's a big Gators fan. He's a Jags fan too. Larry sometimes gets frustrated with the Jags like we all do, but Larry's especially a Florida Gators fan. And we're going to be talking SEC football as these podcasts continue. How will Florida do? Man, they better have Lagway healthy, and they got to win the close games. That's what it comes down to in the rugged and tough and tumble Southeastern Conference in SEC football. I think Georgia, they've retooled their roster. They're going to be strong. Texas and Georgia are going to be near the top. I think Alabama gets back in there. I think Florida's got a chance to be a top 5 SEC team, and probably LSU, you got to figure they're in there somewhere in the top 5. Tennessee's been a program under Josh Heupel that, I don't know, they seem to be losing a little luster. Maybe they're right. Maybe in the SEC, Tennessee is 7th, 8th, or 9th. But we'll be working on our SEC power rankings really, really soon. We're brought to you by Saucer Realty and Capital for your real estate needs in North Florida. Also by, and Max, we got it edited on the ticker now. Also by the Mad Max Mix.weebly.com. We did edit that. We got that correct on there now, Max. Max's Wednesday night request show. Great show. Sometimes I'll ask Max to play a song and he'll put it on. Then sometimes he'll just play one he thinks I like. And the song he played for me last Wednesday on his last show, or his most recent show, I should say, What's Your Name by Leonard Skinner, one of my favorite Skinner songs of all time. He plays ARS for me. Steely Dan, the Mad Max Mix.weebly.com. Max's Wednesday night request show. Also, JC's show is on Thursday night. That'd actually be tonight as we record this podcast on Thursday, August 21st. JC's live show on Thursday nights, live from the pub at LakeUvalahits.com. Great internet radio where it's absolutely all good. Glad to have you guys tuned in to the Teal Shirt Report podcast. One more preseason game to go. The Jaguars' final game will be in South Florida against the Miami Dolphins. It'll be backups, bubble players trying to make the team, players just trying to get something on film where maybe another team will pick them up after the Jaguars perhaps release them at the tail end of August of 2025 here. So one more preseason game to go. The Jags are 0-1-1 in the preseason. A tie. You don't see a tie very often, but the Jaguars-Saints game ended in a 17-17 tie last week. and that was, last Sunday in New Orleans. But Trevor played well in that game, 8 out of 10 passing, a touchdown pass. There was one costly turnover for the Jaguars on their first drive where it looked like, Ezra Cleveland, the left guard, and will be the starting left guard. Apparently, he got tangled up with Trevor and maybe stepped on his foot. That led to a fumble, and the Jags lost the ball on the first drive. And both drives were long. The second drive was a long drive, too, that ended in a touchdown pass from Trevor Lawrence to Parker Washington. The Jags, for my money, got 4 pretty darn good receivers, but we don't. Travis Hunter's a wild card. He had an upper body issue, could not play. If it was a regular season game, he would have played. I'm almost sure. So you've got Brian Thomas Jr., who I think is going to just continue to be fantastic and be the number 1 wide receiver for the Jaguars. But then there's only so many balls to go around. And I love the Liam Cohen offense. He's doing a vertical game where he's passing the ball. The backs going upfield, wide receivers going upfield. And I like the offense. The critical thing with the Jags offense is going to be the offensive line, because I think the Jags got plenty of running backs. They got a good amount of pretty good average to even much better than average wide receivers with a Brian Thomas Jr., Travis Hunter on my radar. The guy can jump like 2 feet in the air. I've seen the still photos. I've seen the films. Man, the guy can jump. He can catch the ball. But how good of an NFL player will he be? That is the question in regards to Travis Hunter. Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp got rained out against Worcester. I'm not even pronouncing that right. Worcester, Massachusetts. I thought that was a barbecue sauce, Worcester. Okay, you folks from Worcester, let me know. But the Jumbo Shrimp did not lose. Their game was postponed due to rain. Let me give you a little update on the Jumbo Shrimp. We do check North Florida Entertainment. AAA baseball on the road. The Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp at Worcester postponed due to rain. The Jumbo Shrimp now 72-48, having a great season. And this was the August 20th game that was rained out on August 20th of 2025. A rain out on the road. It will be made up today, sometime today later on August 21st of 2025 up in Worcester. That's up in Massachusetts. That'd be a long bus ride. Or did the guys fly up there? I'm not sure. Weather capsule from BigJReport.com. We'll get to that in a moment. There was a game actually played up in Worcester on Tuesday. AAA baseball, Worcester 4, Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp 3, a final on Tuesday, August the 19th of 2025. As we mentioned, the Jumbo Shrimp, Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp, still having a great season at 72-48. Back to the weather capsule, and I got asked a question on Mad Max's show this past Wednesday. Max said, what about Hurricane Aaron? How's that affecting the weather? Well, one day, I think seas were 5 to 9 feet, and they were 6 to 10 feet yesterday, and I think they're going to be today about 6 to 8 feet. So the surfers love it out there at Jax Beach, Atlantic Beach, Neptune Beach. The surfers in Northeast Florida love it, and in Southeast Georgia. But the good news is for everybody, the storm is pushing way to the north and curving to the east, and it's several hundred miles away from us. And the only thing we're going to get from it now are, some higher seas, maybe some rip currents and things like that. The chance of rain has increased for today to about 60%, and we are looking at times to see increasing cloudiness here in North Florida. So the Jumbo Shrimp still having a great year, man. And they're on the road right now, 72-48. They got a rain out. They'll make that game up today. But they're playoff bound in AAA baseball. The Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp are 72-48. And let's see. We are going to take a look at some concerts real quick here. Make sure you tune in for JC's show live from the pub On Thursday nights, John Gaylor's been listening to the show. Alex Nunnery, especially John Gaylor's been listening to JC's show. On Thursday nights, he plays requests for me and most everybody else. Check out JC's show live from the pub on Thursday nights at LakeUpallahits.com. Great internet radio. Mad Max's show, the MadMaxMix.weebly.com, is on Wednesday nights. And Max was asking me about Hurricane Aaron. And except for the higher seas and the higher surf along the coastline, and maybe a little bit more of a chance of rain, 60% chance of rain now. The winds are dying down already, like winds 5 to 8 miles per hour today, but we're still going to have some higher surf from Hurricane Aaron, but it's moving way to our north and curving to the east now, Max, so it's not really even a threat to us at this juncture. Recently in rugby, in the Pro Rugby League, Brooklyn, the Brooklyn Kings defeated the Jacksonville Axemen. Real quickly, we know that coming up this week on August 23rd in St. Augustine, Florida at the amphitheater, UB40 will be there with special guest The Fix. And let me just run down some shows. I don't really have a whole lot on the concerts right now, but we'll be adding some more. Again, UB40 and The Fix at the St. Augustine Amphitheater this Saturday night, August the 23rd of 2025 at 7:30 p.m. Tickets have been selling fast for this event. UB40 is performing at the St. Augustine Amphitheater on August the 23rd of 2025 with special guest The Fix. I'd rather see The Fix more than UB40, but they had a big song, Red, Red Wine. Red, Red Wine. Do you remember that one? The Fix. I don't know. What's their biggest song by The Fix? Probably Red Skies at Night. No, probably not that one. Red Skies at Night was a great song. Saved by Zero, a great tune. Their biggest song was probably the song One Thing Leads to Another. The Fix. So you got UB40 performing at the St. Augustine Amphitheater this Saturday night, August the 23rd of 2025 at 7:30 p.m. with special guest The Fix at the St. Augustine Amphitheater. Peter Frampton. This is a guy who had an illness a couple of years ago, and you'd have to say he's kind of like a comeback player and had great songs. The Frampton Comes Alive album may have been one of the top 2 or 3 live albums of all time. What are other great live albums out there? There's a lot of them. There's some good live albums, but Peter Frampton might have had one of the top 2 or 3 of all time. Peter Frampton Comes Alive. And the song JC plays for me, I Can't Stand It No More, by Peter Frampton. He plays that on his show sometimes on JC's Live from the Pub show on Thursday nights at LakeUpallahits.com. Great internet radio where it's all good. As far as the concert, Peter Frampton, that's right, Peter Frampton will be in St. Augustine. And when we talk about St. Augustine, for you folks not as familiar about Northeast Florida, St. Augustine's going to be about a 30-minute drive or ride from most anywhere in Jacksonville. It's about a 30-minute drive from Jacksonville, Florida. St. Augustine, great place to watch a show. I've been to the St. Augustine Amphitheater. I saw Steely Dan there years ago. So Peter Frampton's going to be there. He's been at this venue before, like a year or 2 ago, but he's back. Peter Frampton on Wednesday evening, October the 29th of 2025 at 7 o'clock p.m. at the St. Augustine Amphitheater in St. Augustine, Florida. Also another great event, tickets for Mickey Dolenz of the Monkees, the final surviving member. The Monkees, there were 4 of them, Peter Tork, Davy Jones, Michael Naismith, and Mickey Dolenz does a great tribute to his Monkey bandmates that have all passed on except for him. And he'll do that during this show. So it's really worth seeing. Again, another great event. Tickets for Mickey Dolenz of the Monkees, Songs and Stories at the Florida Theater on December the 5th of 2025 are on sale now. And by the way, this, you talk about these older guys. that are in concert, whether they're doing songs, stories, or a little bit of both, like Mickey Dolenz is going to do. I mean, these guys are like fine wines. I mean, they're not going to be here forever, as you know. Life is precious. Ozzy Osbourne passed away here just a few weeks ago. Mickey Dolenz is 80 years old. He's scheduled to be in Jacksonville at the Florida Theater in December of 2025. So if you want to know about concerts, and we're updating them also, the concert listings are ever evolving at bigjreport.com in the Neighbors 2 section. That's going to about wrap it up. Jags got one more preseason game left down in South Florida against the Miami Dolphins this weekend. Man, we're going to just wrap things up here. Show number 46 of the Teal Shirt Report podcast. Hope you guys have a great day. Our podcast, the Teal Shirt Report podcast, show number 46, has been produced by our executive producer, JC, also by Alex Nunnery, and want to thank John Gaylor for all the insight, the messaging, the information. And again, we looked it up, 16 guys on the practice squad after the cuts are made down to the 53 on about the last day of August, I believe. Hey, you guys have a great day. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to the Teal Shirt Report podcast. I'm your host, Scott. Man, you guys have a great day. And Mad Max, I did edit the madmaxmix.weebly.com on the ticker now. I think we got all that squared away. We're sponsored in part by the madmaxmix.weebly.com and Max's Wednesday night request show. You guys have a great day. Thank you for watching the Teal Shirt Report podcast. Thank you for watching and listening.